Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I want to do something a little bit different, I suppose, for this video. I may have done a similar video at some point, but I don't do these very often. So it's what the title says, really. Who can stop reform? Now, you may say that's a bit of a premature question to ask because reform only have 5 MPs in the House of Commons, and that's very true. But as this nowcast on your screen shows, they are currently projected, not only by this model, but by many others, to be the party in pole position to win a general election and form a government. So this model, if you watched the video the other day, you'll know that this nowcast has them at 332 seats, which is a majority of 6 in the House of Commons. And look, I know many of you are getting the comments, which I love. Please do get in the comments. Let me know what you think about all this and your opinions. I love to hear that. But I know there are going to be people in the comments saying this is only opinion polling, it's all theoretical, it means nothing. Well, that is true, but I disagree that it means nothing. We saw in May at the local elections that reform can convert opinion poll leads into actually winning the popular vote in an election. In fact, they outperformed the opinion polls in May. I think the opinion polls at the time had them around 26, 27, 28%, depending on which ones you looked at, and they ended up getting about 31% of the vote. So they outperformed what the opinion polls had them on. So I don't think it is meaningless. I think May proved that reform can win, or like I say, can convert opinion poll leads into genuinely winning the popular vote at an election. And of course, they did win another MP at that set of local elections, because there was the by-election in Runcorn and Helsby, and Sarah Pochin was returned as the Member of Parliament there, who has taken the rosette for reform. So who can stop this momentum? And by the way, this momentum is incredible in the context of British politics. This has all happened within a year, really. I remember when I started this channel back in November of last year, 2024. We had the 5 reform constituencies on this map, of course. I remember there was a lot more blue on this map, and there was certainly a lot more red on this map. And I remember, I think Amber Valley up in Derbyshire, that was an early switcher from Labour to Reform. You can look how far ahead Reform are there now, by the way, 25%. And I remember down in Kent, a lot of these started flipping over quite early. I think Folkestone and Hythe went quite early. Ashford went quite early. East Thanet went quite early. So they started to pick up, the map started shifting. I remember talking a lot about Kent. Kent was the first area that really started going to Reform kind of wholesale. But like I say, this map was covered in a lot more blue and red. And here we are, from November, just 7 or 8 months on from that, 9 months on from that, and the map is looking considerably more reform turquoise. So the momentum is absolutely phenomenal in the context of the two-party system in British politics. So yeah, the question is, who can stop this reform momentum? Who can stop them from forming a government in their own right, which now, like I say, a lot of the models project them doing? Well, thanks to electionmaps.uk, this is the website that I'm using, the map that you're seeing on your screen at the moment. I've been using this website since I started doing these videos in November. Fantastic website, very well laid out, easy to use. You guys seem to like it when I use it as well. You can check it out for yourself. It is all free. Electionmaps.uk is the website, and I'm using their new custom nowcast model, which has come out in the last few weeks. So you can put in your own polling numbers and it will spit out an election result for you. So that's what we're going to use to try and answer this question of who can stop reform. So the current polling numbers are on the screen there. Now, I think these numbers I don't know if these lag the nowcast or if the nowcast lags this, but this actually gives us a slightly different projection. I don't know if maybe the model's slightly different. Reform actually in this one are 322, so not quite at a majority government of 326, but they're in the ballpark, so we'll run with it. And you can see the numbers there: Labour 133, Tories 33, 78 for the Lib Dems, 5 for the Greens, 44 for the SNP. Okay, so let's know, before we go into who's going to actually stop reform, I want to see, because at 30%, reform are going to would have the same problem that Labour have at the moment, in that they would have a historically low vote share to form a government. And the issue that Labour have had with that is that you're really lacking legitimacy, and as soon as things go wrong, your support just falls away. And I think that's really what's happened to Labour. They were coming in to start with a very unpopular government, and that's only got worse. So Reform would hopefully, I would hope they're looking to go and push on above the 30%. I'm hoping that they're not going to be satisfied with just getting enough to win. They want to surely convert as much of the people as they can to their cause. So let's say Reform can do that, and Reform get up to 40% of the vote. And we'll say that in order to do that, Labour fall down to 20%, the Tories go down to 14%, Lib Dems improve to 18%, Greens improve to 10%. And I'm not touching the SNP number and the Plaid number. I'm going to leave them alone because I just don't really feel informed enough about the Scottish and Welsh politics to really play with those numbers. And by the way, the other numbers I'm playing with is purely me spitballing. Okay, there's no science behind this. I'm just putting in numbers. We're having fun with it. I would love for you guys to go and do this yourself and let me know what you find in the comments and get involved that way. That'd be fantastic. So with these numbers that I'm just putting off the top of my head, this is a Reform domination essentially. So Reform end up with 431, a majority of 105. The Liberal Democrats are the leaders of the opposition with 82. And the Labour on 67, which is interesting because the Lib Dems were actually beaten in the popular vote here by Labour, but they would still convert that into more seats. That's just how good the Liberal Democrats are. That's how they're able, remember that the Reform Party beat the Lib Dems in popular vote in 2024, but got a load more seats. They got up to 72 seats, didn't they? So Reform got 5. So impressive from the Lib Dems. Tories down to an irrelevant 8. Greens on 5. SNP on 31. So this is interesting. If we look at the SNP number, 31 there, and our previous, using the current polling, they're on 44. So interesting, that would insinuate that Reform are making inroads in Scotland, and that's by no means beyond the realms of imagination. Look, we know that Reform have already flipped Aberdeenshire North and Moray East up in the north east of Scotland. They're in the hunt down in the southwest of the country, in Dumfries and Galloway. They're very much in the hunt, only a percent behind. And in Ayr, Carrick and Cumnock, again, only 1% behind down there. So they're in the hunt in Scotland as it is on the current polling. So it's by no means impossible that if they were to increase their national share by another 10%, Reform wouldn't be making inroads in Scotland. So that's Reform dominating at 40%. So now we come on to that question of who can actually stop Reform, who can put the brakes on the train, as it were. So for this one then, we're going to say, I think there's only 2 parties, by the way, that can really do this. I think it has to be Labour or the Liberal Democrats. Now, I know Jeremy Corbyn is potentially forming his own party. I think he may well do a lot of damage to Labour. I don't foresee him being troubling the scorers at the top end and challenging Reform or anything like that, but who knows? We'll see. I'll cover it when it comes out, and we'll see what happens. But I think it has to be the Lib Dems or Labour. So let's go with the Lib Dems. So let's put Reform down on 35, so increasing about 5 or 6% from where they are now to the mid-30s. Put Lib Dems on 30, which means they're essentially doubling their vote share. And we'll put the Conservatives down on 10 and Labour on 16. So majority of the Lib Dem vote coming from Labour and Tory ex-voters, essentially. So what does that do for us? It's still a Reform win. Fairly comfortable majority. We're looking at there a majority of 31 for Reform. So a slender majority, I suppose. Not the largest, not the most convincing. But you can see that nobody else is particularly close. Lib Dems on 177 are clearly the leaders of the opposition at these numbers. Labour down to 40, Conservatives down to an even more irrelevant 3, Greens on 7, Plaid 5, SNP 36. So still, we assume Reform are picking up some Scottish seats. It may well be that Lib Dems are picking up some Scottish seats at those numbers as well. So the Lib Dems are going to really struggle to stop Reform. It's hard to see at this stage, based on the fact that since the general election, the Lib Dems vote share hasn't really moved much. It's still around 15%, depending on what poll you look at. They might be on 16 or 17. Some they might be on 14. It's very difficult to see the Lib Dems getting up to 30 in the first place, let alone getting higher than that to actually challenge Reform. I think in order to do that, they would have to change quite fundamentally who they are as a party and who they're appealing to. So can the Lib Dems stop Reform? I don't think they can. I think it'd be very, very difficult for the Lib Dems to stop Reform. I think they can dent Reform. I don't think they can stop them. So that brings us on to our other possibility, which is Labour. So essentially we do the same in reverse, really. We'll keep Reform on 35, keep the Tories on 10, put Labour on 30, and the Lib Dems are put on 18. I think that's a realistic number for them if the Tories are down at 10. And I reduced the Green vote here to 6, assuming that for the Labour Party to get back up to the 30s%, they would have to give succour to the left wing of their party, which may just entice some Green voters across potentially. And again, we're still doing this without the Jeremy Corbyn party on the docket as well. So that's the assumption I've made to do this. So essentially the same numbers, just reduce the Greens and improve the Lib Dems from what they currently are to 18. Reform on 35, Labour on 30. We haven't touched Scotland or Wales. And that gives us Reform 325. So even with those numbers, Reform are still in the territory of majority government. They would miss out by one here. But you can see that the Labour Party are probably the most likely to be able to stop Reform from forming a government in their own right. They're the most likely to be able to challenge them. But my oh my, they have a long way to go if they're going to do that. Look, like I say, they'd have to, I think, give a lot of succour to the left wing of their party. But then we know that doing that doesn't win an election for Labour. We saw that under Jeremy Corbyn. So, look, it's very difficult to see who really is going to stop Reform at this stage. I think, like I said, I think Labour are the most likely. I don't think the Liberal Democrats can do it. I think the Tories are finished. So it really is Labour. But with Jeremy Corbyn's party on the horizon, it seems very, very unlikely that Labour are going to be doing 30% in the polls to challenge Reform like that. Of course, I'm making the assumption in these polls that Reform would be able to increase another 6%, but I don't see any reason to see why they wouldn't be able to do that. You know, when they increased from 15 to 20% after the general election, everybody said that would be their ceiling. Well, we're 10% on from there, and it's been, like I say, a year less since Reform were at 20%. So I don't see any reason why Reform can't push on up to 35%. I can't see any reason why they can't actually push up to 40% if they play their cards right. Which leads me on to the other possibility, is Reform the most likely candidate to stop Reform? They've already had some hiccups in the road. They've had Ben Habib in the immediate aftermath of the general election. He left the party. He was the deputy vice chair, or co-vice chair, I can't remember what they called it. He left. He's now formed his own party, Advance UK. Rupert Lowe, the MP for Great Yarmouth, obviously left in quite explosive circumstances earlier this year. There's still a lot of bad blood there. He's pretty much made it his mission statement to ensure Nigel Farage never becomes the PM. James McMurdoch is another Reform MP that's gone. He didn't fall out with the party, but he's had some skeletons in his closet. He's now no longer sitting as a Reform MP. Zahir Yousaf resigned as the chairman and then came back. No, you know, a lot of theories as to why. I do happen to think, having read all the stuff, I think he just got a bit of burnout, couldn't really take the heat in the kitchen of being the chairman, and called it a day. But these things have happened that just bumps in the road. Now, there haven't been bumps enough to stop the map looking like that, mind you. Let's bear that in mind. But they are hiccups, and they are perhaps red flags that this is fragile. Perhaps fragile. And so maybe the answer to our question indeed is Reform may be the party that can stop Reform. They might self-destruct, they may self-immolate, and that might be what happens. And so let's look at that in theory then. So let's say Reform get in their own way and they manage to decline from where they are now at 30. Let's say they top out at 30, something happens and they lose a load of support, go down to 22%, and that's a collapse in the support at this point. That would be a reduction of 7 or 8% in their polling numbers. So let's say they come down to 22. Labour improve from this point actually to 25. That might be unlikely, and the Tories improve to 20. That seems unlikely too. And Lib Dems improve to 18. I think the 18 is probably, I don't know. I'm tentative to say at the moment I think 18 is probably the Lib Dems ceiling. You'll probably disagree with me. If you do, get in the comments and let me know why I'm wrong. But we'll put the Greens on 7, and that comes up with Labour on 232, largest party. Reform, the second largest party, quite clearly on 157. Lib Dems, third largest, 96. Tories down on 87, and the minorities, or the essentially Gaza independents, you can see do pretty well out of that. They get up to 11. I don't know how realistic that is. Like I say, at the moment it just seems fanciful that Labour might improve, but they can improve. Anything can happen. And it's not a huge improvement. Even if the Tories improve to 20%, they're still getting caned. Look, this would still be really a fantastic result for reform. To be the second largest party, break the two-party system would be phenomenal. But of course, from where they are right now, this would be remarkably disappointing. So maybe, perhaps, reform are the party that can stop reform. And that's a conclusion I'll take. Thanks, guys. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it was interesting for you. Please do leave a like on the video and get involved in the comments. And go to electionmaps.uk, go to the Nowcast, go to the custom poll that I've been on here. Do your own, play with it. Let me know what you find, and we'll have a chat about it in the comments. Thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.